Today with Dr. Glatt, we will walk you through how we are redefining post-surgical lower limb fractures rehabilitation using a data-driven approach and new medical device. And let me start with the problem. I just need to allow to come everyone. Hello everyone once more time, and we are starting. Okay, so let me start with something hard to believe. For nearly 3.4 million lower limb fractures each year in the US, there are no evidence-based guidelines for weight bearing or step count during rehab. Patients simply don't know how much weight to apply to their injured leg or how often they should walk when using assistive device like crutches, walkers, or cane. And this is a big deal because one of the main reasons of complications like incomplete bone healing and internal fixation failure is incorrect weight bearing. When a patient apply not enough or too much weight on the recovering limb. And that's one of the major reasons why over 500,000 of Americans need reoperation surgery every year. That's just for 9 fracture types. The financial impact is huge. It's about 55 billion annually in preventable costs to the US healthcare system. And if you follow the link below, you can see the data broken down by diagnosis. For example, as you can see, here is the tibial shaft, tibial patella, and other diagnoses. And in tibial shaft, there are 37% of reoperation, 12% of non-union, 9% of delayed healing, residual pain, which is more than 3 months after surgery when patients suffer from pain, 17% of this kind of complication. Deep infection is 13%, and depression is 21% because of their complications during to rehabilitation. Let me allow some more people to come in. Yeah, so in total, if we take just tibia fracture, we take just one tibia fracture, we will see that their annual loss for the insurance companies in the US is more than 12 billion a year due to a poor guidelines on the weight bearing. I know those numbers are hard to believe, but they are real, and you can find them, and you can find every source in this link after the presentation. We will share with you this presentation after this session. So how are we going to solve this problem? We're going to manage weight bearing and steps from surgery to the full recovery. Based on patient's CT scan, we calculate what load will accelerate bone healing without compromising the fixation safety. Through our mobile app, we prescribe individual patient weight bearing protocol to each patient and remotely monitor their compliance. And with our FDA-cleared Smart Crutch tips, patients can finally start loading their legs earlier without the risk of damaging implants, expedite recovery, and significantly reduce complications. And now let me walk and show what we have done so far. We have designed a biofeedback medical device class 2, 510(k) exempt, known as the Smart Crutch tips, and built mobile apps for patients and doctors. We have manufactured 400 units in-house in Ukraine and obtained 3 patents, including the US and Canada. The European patent is in pending status. We have passed all regulatory checkpoints, including FCC, HIPAA, quality management system, and of course, we have successfully passed the FDA inspection. Our first study was done independently by Dr. Kevin Brule at Charleston South University, and he validated that Smart Crutch tips are a valid tool for clinical use and measures weight bearing correctly. Our satisfaction trial was done by Dr. Pieter van Kalman in Netherlands, and he proved that our device is so easy to use, that on average, it takes just 6 minutes to train patients on how to follow weight-bearing protocol. A clinical trial with 20 patients at NYU Langone, initiated by head of trauma division, Dr. Eagle Kenneth, showed that patients with our devices have compliance to weight-bearing prescriptions 73%. So 73% of their steps is within the prescribed weight-bearing range versus 18% without our device, which is 4 times better results. And recently, we established our own clinical research organization in Ukraine, and this research organization is in progress of signing agreements with over 30 surgeons across 14 hospitals in Ukraine, giving us rapid access to a large and diverse patient pool. Under the guidelines of UT Health and Dr. Glatt, this infrastructure enables us to run international clinical trials in Texas and multiple Ukrainian cities, accelerate patient enrollment, and conduct high-quality studies at a fraction of a typical cost. Now, let me give a word to Dr. Glatt, and thank you very much for joining us today.
So as I said, my name is Vaida Glatt. For those who joined a bit late, I've been in the orthopedic field for about 20 years, studying bone healing from all aspects, from when they don't heal, at biologics, as well as mechanical environment. That's how I started all my journey in orthopedics. And what I discovered is actually, I was to discover that, well, for one, we know bone is mechanically loaded tissue. So if you don't load it, it actually, we lose it. So I'm sure you heard when the astronauts go to space, they have to kind of relearn working because they lose a lot of bone mass. So it's really, really key. And especially initially in those initial type of injury healing. So what I developed is something called reverse dynamization, because dynamization measures dynamizing, so going up and down nicely. And what I discovered that even though the field was doing it backwards for like 30, 40 years before me, that they initially would fix bones really, really rigidly, so would not allow, so patients, there's no movement in that fracture gap. And what they start to see, that depending on the timing, and most often that bones would start to fail to heal. So they start to back away from this like initial super rigid fixation and then letting it a bit more motion. So my idea was, knowing bone biology, if you think about it, bone needs to be loaded initially. So to build up that soft callus, so you get that nice like callus, and I'll show you in a second, and then make it rigid. And the reason to make it rigid later is, think about it like, I always give an example, 2 pieces of wood. Imagine you glue 2 pieces of wood, stick it together, and you keep moving. If you keep moving, it would never set, right? It would just, the glue would spill out and it would never set. So the idea is to, at this point, once that nice callus is built up, you want to make it rigid. So that way all the vessels can to sprout and they don't get disturbed, right? Because no vessels, no blood, no bone. So that's the key. So here's just to quickly show in the visually. So as you can imagine, so here's like that little gap, as you can see, between bone, and just pure for visualization, right? And you always have to fix it, because without implants, we can't stabilize these fractures. And then it moves up and down, as you can imagine. And then you can see it builds up that soft callus. And it's just like this little soft callus that you start to see on the x-rays. And then we don't need it for long, 3-4 weeks, 3-4 weeks. And then you make it rigid, as I said. So that rigidity is very, very important to expedite that healing process. And through my animal studies, and I published a lot, and now we're using in the clinic, we're doing clinical trials through the implants. But there's 2 ways to do it. So we can accelerate healing already once we do from dynamizing or initial that movement, and then rigidity 50% faster. So you can do this through the implants. And then, as you can see, patient heals, and it's very, very fast. We already have that evidence from all animal studies and also in patients. Now, you can do this 2 ways. You can do through implants, but we don't have really smart implants unless you use these big devices, like I call it medieval devices, because the internal implant's not yet there, that we can actually do change stiffness. But you can also do through weight bearing or through and when Ilya, exactly. And when Ilya contacted me, I was like, oh, I always wanted to do study, but there is no technology existing then. So then my idea was exactly that. That's why I joined. And I think we can definitely, we already know, so we can for sure make those patients heal much faster. And just to quickly demonstrate, and for those who don't know how to read x-rays, he's probably looking at it and was like, what's going on here? So imagine on top here, if you can see my cursor, that's rigid fixation. And it looks, it's not super rigid because it's animals and stuff. And then flexible, you can see those gaps right there. As you can see in between, those are not good really. You don't have those gaps after a certain amount of healing. So that indicates non-union. So here's what we used to do back in the day. We used to do rigid, as you can see here, and then change it, that dynamization. Remember, rigid to flexible. Look what happens when you do change it initially rigid and then flexible. It's really bad. Those gaps means it does not heal, and it would never heal. Now we need an intervention. And if patient had an open fracture, it's probably infected. So lots of complications. Those gaps are very bad. But look on this other side, on the left side, when we did 7 days reverse organization, initially flexible and then rigid, just exactly how we're planning to do with the weight bearing, with the comeback mobility tips. As you can see here, there is no gap. You can start to see that bone filling in. And if we do it at 14 days for 2 weeks, a bit longer, it's even better. As you can see, much bigger callus filling in. So exactly. What was interesting and also very important to us, that once you do it later, much later in the healing, it doesn't matter what you do. So those initial key weight bearing for those few weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, it's very, very important. And that's exactly what we're going to do with dose comparability. And it's really important because if patient does not walk initially, it's most likely that it will result in delayed healing. And that's where all the statistics that you just saw. That's why US government or even across the globe spends a lot of money because those bones don't heal if these patients don't apply in a specific way.
Yeah, thank you.
I handled the torch back to Ilya.
So so far did a test with 7 patients, and here is one of the example. This patient had a tibia shaft fracture, and as you know, the usual healing time is 24 weeks, and this patient reached radiological healing within 2 months instead of 6. This is our, and we've done it with our early immobilization and individual weight bearing, and then patients was able to comply with these prescriptions through our Smart Crutch tips and was able to come back to normal life more than 2 times faster. Pretty soon we will have more evidence and more patients who can walk independently faster. Now, let me tell you how we're going to earn money from all these brilliant things. So we're going to produce the device in our Ukrainian own assembly line and supplied it to the US with $300. Then we're going to sell it with $2,000 to distributors in the US, and distributors are going to sell it to hospitals with $3,000. And hospitals will train patients on how to walk correctly, and distributors will rent the device to patients. And we will split this rental half-half with comeback mobility. And of course, insurance will cover the work for the hospital they train patients and device rental for their distributors. Why? Because insurance will spend less than 1,000 and save more than 8,000. And distributors gonna love our product because each B2B sale, each sale to hospital will generate a flow for the rental flow for the patients. And of course, clinics will get more revenue per patient and improve patients' outcomes. So this is how we're gonna make from $300 up to $22,000 in revenue. Reimbursement pathway is already in place. Today, physicians can already use existing CPT codes to generate additional revenue while using our device. 1 time per patient for the initial device setup, 1 time per visit for biofeedback training, and each month for remote patient monitoring. Each hospital sets its own reimbursement rate. For example, NYC Metropolitan Hospital has confirmed that under Medicaid, they can bill code for initial device setup for $201 per patient. On top of that, in 2022, our product received an official HCPCS code from PDEC to making it assignable for reimbursement once savings for payers are proven. We divided our go-to-market strategy into two strategic pathways. Phase one, focused on building strong clinical evidence to convince orthopedic surgeons to prescribe our device and validate that it's accelerate bone healing time with tibia shaft and extra-articular fractures. 3 pilots are currently underway, and we will present this in October at the Orthopedic Trauma Association meeting in Phoenix. Phase 2 is dedicated to proven reduction in the rates of non-union, internal fixation failure, and reoperations through individual early weight bearing during home rehabilitation. And this multi-center study is led by UT Health in the US and supported by 14 hospitals in Ukraine. We plan to begin initial sales in Q4 2025 with devices distributed exclusively to key opinion leaders due to limited production volume. And in 2027, we will scale our manufacturing and sales operations through DME distributors, leading to exponential revenue growth. We use our value-based valuation model, calculating our company's worth as 2.5% of proven savings for US payers. You can see below how $300K or $1.5 million investment today grows over time. So $300K can become $1.7 million in 2026, almost $4 million in 2027, and $13 million in 2028. Can you, Dr. Glatt, can you say more about our partners and surgeons?
So we already actually have quite a big interest of orthopedic surgeons that would like to use it, because there's some of them already on this page. We don't have all of them listed here, but especially the one from San Antonio that they joined us recently in the last couple of days. But they already tested in some of these patients and they like it. Not only that they like it, but they actually have all this information what the patient actually was walking, and they can link it back to why they did not heal. But they also often tell patients, like, it's very difficult to describe and tell them how to walk when they say apply to, let's say, half of your body weight. Patients don't know how to do that. They usually tell them to step on a scale. And that's not very accurate, as you all can imagine. I mean, I was on the crutches and I could not do that either. So they're already very excited. They want to join that team, and they're ready to join into the clinical trials that we are setting up to do, which is going to be pretty soon, hopefully in the next month or so.
Yeah, and together that 6 hospital chains treat over 7,800 patients annually, representing $4 million of potential market opportunity through our CPT-enabled reimbursable model. This is not just theoretical. Those are trusted voices in the field, and some of them are, as Dr. Glatt said, already in collaboration and doing clinical trials with us. So we have raised 2.6 million so far, built product and launched clinical trials. Now we are raising 1.5 million in safe round with 15 million cap to complete multi-site clinical trials, secure CPT-based reimbursement, and launch B2B commercialization with more than 6 hospitals. We are also opening for $300K bridge round to generate early data and kick off direct-to-consumer B2B sales. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions. If you have one.
I think you did so good. No questions.
Yes. Hello, Sergey.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, you did a perfect one. Thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to see you having that presentation together with Dr. Glatt. That's a good sign for all of us. Ilya, just to double check if we all understand correctly. So to cover the revenue part of comeback ability, yeah, if you come back to that. So we have that commitment for the generic codes that are covering some part of it. And what we need to do to get a higher level of reimbursement, our specific codes or whatsoever that we need to do, just give a little bit more information here.
Sure. So as I showed earlier, we do have a prescribed HCPCS code for our device use, but for now it doesn't reimbursable. It does not any particular reimbursement on it code. And as soon as we will conduct and publish at least 2 independent clinical research with different diagnoses, Medicare and Medicaid will consider to prescribe a particular amount of reimbursement for that code for us. And we plan to do it at the end of 2026, when we will reach statistical significant in proven improvement of that outcomes that we just mentioned.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, that's right. And am I right that we have a preliminary commitments to work with insurance company who would help us, or insurance agency to organize all of this? Because for many of us who've been investing outside of the US, the structure of reimbursement is a little bit of, complicated, and the way of it's hard. So if you say that we have a clear roadmap for that would be worth to probably add as a specific slide and understand what needs to be done to get the reimbursement as a main source of income. This, I think, 100% is very, very important. Other than that, perfect. I mean, thank you very much.
Thank you for mentioning it. Yes, we spoke with some of the payer plans director with insurance companies, and what they told us that they have so many startups that claim they're doing these claims that they're going to save money, they're going to prevent everything. But what they're very interesting to see is the real data from real studies. And if what they said is, if we can potentially save $2 per member per month, and we are aiming to save more than $4, if we can prove it, they will definitely reimburse. How much? We don't know. But typically, what experts says, they usually reimburse 25% from the amount we can save them. So if we save $8,000, they probably reimburse $2,000. But our assumption that we can obtain reimbursement twice less, because we don't know how much improvements we're gonna show. So our predictions is pretty conservative.
And just before, so also here it's good because I guess Ilya moved for me because of me, but it's better because it's a military town, and once you get military behind it, and lots of soldiers need this, they come back from different conflicts and different things, and so I have some context to military, and once the military is behind it, this pathway to reimbursement and insurance, because Medicare, Medicaid will be the first to do it. And once the military is convinced, it's much easier to get there. And I already have experience with that. So that's what we're working towards as well, to include the military as part of clinical trials. And we have 2 trauma centers here in San Antonio that did the key. And we have lots of fractures comparatively. We're probably number 10 in the United States with the fractures that we treat here. So I think it's a good place to be in terms of, not good for people, good for us as a company, because we have a big population of patients that we can treat here and use those crutches on, including military. So there's 2 trauma centers, military one called BAMC, and then we have here in San Antonio University of